The International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking for this year was marked all over the world last Friday, June the 22nd, although the actual day is June 26, 626. The theme of this year's event is Better Knowledge for Better Care, with the hashtag Facts for Solidarity. Joining us from our Rise Abuja studio for a chat on the message of this year's commemoration of 626 is Shadrach Haruna, Secretary, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Shadrach Haruna, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. Well, hello.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
happy to be here, and thank you for having
honoring
me.
our invitation. Well, quickly, could you take us through the message thrust for this year's International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking?
Oh, well, thank you so much. Every 26th day of June is set aside by the United Nations to commemorate drug abuse, against drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking. In fact, this year is going to be marked as one of those days set aside by the United Nations. And this was done by a resolution of 43/112 of 1987, where the whole world decided to see what they can do to for a join-up approach against drug abuse and drug trafficking. Indeed, we have an action where we have strengthened action and cooperation to achieve the goal for a drug-free world. And this is the objective which Nigeria has keyed into. And this year's theme, as you rightly mentioned, is better knowledge for better care. And this emphasizes the need to improve the understanding of world drug problem and how in turn we could use knowledge to foster greater cooperation for countering its impact on health. Indeed, the cooperation required here is both international and within. Our agency is cooperating with all the stakeholders, particularly Ministry of Health and other health institutions and primary health care providers, to ensure that we provide care for victims or for those who are dependent on drugs. And what we are doing in that regard is to also key into the theme for this year to ensure that we give awareness and we provide awareness to Nigerians and other stakeholders on how to counter this drug and also take good care of those who are dependent on drugs. So the agency has a very robust approach to this issue. We have a department which is counseling and rehabilitation, working on issues of those who are drug dependent. And then we also have a department which also go against those who are drug traffickers and those who are cultivating as well as marketing and trafficking drugs. So the agency has both prosecutorial and enforcement powers to ensure that drug is forced to stand still. So we're working collaboratively with other agencies. We're working with international partners, and we're working with other members of the United Nations in this regard.
Thank you, sir. What is the situation like in Nigeria specifically with regards to drug abuse and drug trafficking?
Well, Nigeria, just like any other member states of the United Nations, is the issue of drug is unbelievably alarming. In fact, indeed, you can see that the drug use in the country has risen to an exponential proportion that we need a joined-up approach, and all members, including all our partners, to join hands with us to fight this drug. If I may just give you a little statistics regarding what we saw in 2018 household survey, which we did, about 14.3 million Nigerians are into drug use, and this is illicit drug use. And then of these is about 5.6% of the global world population. And you can see that the increased manufacturing and setting up of clandestine laboratories springing up everywhere in the country. And the agency is on top of the game because we are seeing how these drugs are coming up. Apart from the known drugs like cocaine, heroin, and cannabis, there are also an increasing use of local materials to concoct some drugs which are really high potent. And of course, we have also seen the manufacture of methamphetamine and similar drugs. And of course, tramadol is on the increase. And as we speak, almost every home in Nigeria is affected with this drug abuse. And we have stepped up our own action as well. We have also tried to reorganize the agency in such a way that we have agents who are just around the corner everywhere, and they're just like anybody you see around you. So we're gathering information and using a lot of intelligence to ensure that we'll net some of these people and we'll bring them to book. And we're also stepping action to see how we can rehabilitate and treat those ones who are dependent on drugs. We have so many rehabilitation centers in the country, which we're working on currently. As the increase in drug abuse is rising, we also want to see how we can step up our actions. We, over the years, have tried to collaborate with our partners, and Nigeria indeed is in the forefront of this fight against drugs. And as the agency NDLEA, as one of the first responders to drug issues, have actually strategized and developed a procedure where we can actually fight this drug effectively. We're working collaboratively with agencies like police, we're working with customs, we're working with Nigerian airport authorities and other security agencies around the country. We have seen that drug use has even permeated every society, including schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and has fostered so many of these issues of banditry, cultism in the campuses. We have seen how Boko Haram and other belligerent groups are using drugs to foster terror. We have seen how drug proceeds have also been used to buy and then to do a lot of logistics regarding Boko Haram and so many. So these are issues which we have seen as undermining the security of the country, and the agency is working so hard to ensure that we bring all these things to a standstill. And we have recently been afforded the opportunity to employ so many staff to see that we have a network. And our network is going to be a network around the whole country, not just at the federal level. And we have developed a procedure or an initiative called Whole Society Approach. And the Whole Society Approach is seeking collaborations with stakeholders, including the grassroots people, the traditional rulers, the chairman of local government, governors of states, as well as at federal level, to see how we can have a joined-up approach and develop a network that will cover every facet of this country. The federal government alone cannot do this job, and we have done that, and we have emphasized this over and over again, and we want to see how we can have everyone, not just government agencies, every human being, working with the agency to fight this drug. We need information, and we're working collaboratively with all the grassroots, including the NGOs at the grassroots level, to ensure that we fight this drug to standstill.
Right. I just want us to look back. Can we really say that we're making progress in this fight? Because it looks as though to me that it was until the BBC brought out this big documentary on sweet, sweet codeine that the talk about codeine came out there, people started taking action. It looks as though to me that even if some successes were being recorded, it was not documented and disseminated to the media enough.
Well, that is true, because the agency has recorded a lot of successes. We have the political will from the president of this country, who has actually ordered that some of these drugs you've mentioned, though they look innocuous, like codeine, and used for other purposes, but have been abused to become a drug of abuse. So we're working, and of course, like you said, we have recorded successes, but like most of these successes are not seen in the media, not because we don't want to portray them in the media, but because we want to work silently to ensure that we eradicate this problem. We recently have upsurge of codeine use, tramadol, and so many others. And at the same time, we have developed a network at that level to see how to stem these processes, the tide of this drug abuse. So what the agency is doing, like I've mentioned, is not just coming to the fore, coming to the press to say this is what we're doing. In fact, we have de-emphasized the use of uniform. We have so many of our operatives working in all the areas you can think of, in the marketplaces, in motor parks, and everywhere, where in the leisure park as well as hospitality industries. So this is a way to see how we can gather the information, know who are the drug users, know who are the traffickers and the barons. And indeed, we have been getting some barons. If you watched the news recently, you would have seen that we have prosecuted some high-profile drug traffickers, barons. We have also dismantled so many clandestine laboratories because we have this information coming. But what we need most right now is that cooperation and that networking with the grassroots system, with the grassroots people, as well as other agencies working with us, the law enforcement agencies, to see how we can share information. We do share information with our international partners. We do have coordinations with all other drug agencies and all other law enforcement in the country, but we want to strengthen that coordination. And we're working hard, like you said, we're working hard to ensure that we get everybody on board to fight drugs in the country.
Still on the question of coordination, because you keep talking about collaboration with other agencies, would you like to focus a bit on
Yes.
the level of coordination or collaboration that you have with, say, NAFDAC, for example, and then customs, and then what kind of measures are you applying, preventive measures? Because I don't seem to see a lot coming from the NDLEA in terms of public enlightenment and public communication.
Well, the coordination against drug is key in this country, and we are doing that. We have meetings, we have regular meetings with all the stakeholders, like you mentioned, NAFDAC and customs, as well as even immigration and police. We normally have what we call coordination meetings at both the national level, state level, and the local government level. Our commanders in all the states are members of the security architecture of all the states. And then at the federal level, we have this coordination meeting with Ministry of Health, NAFDAC, and other agencies. We do have this meeting often, and we have a master plan. We have what we call a national master plan, which stipulates how we move and how we coordinate with other agencies. Of course, at the ports, you would have seen that customs and NDLEA and other officials do the joint inspections of containers. We have that good collaboration with customs. We have good collaboration with police. We have seen cases where they have referred seizures done by police and customs to NDLEA for prosecution. We have also seen cases where they have reported to us the issues of drug. And we have worked with them in other parts of the country, particularly in Borno State, to see how we can unearth some of the drug traffickers and then seize some of the drugs which have been found with Boko Haram and other insurgent groups and destroy them. So there's that coordination. You may not have seen it. It doesn't come to the fore. We don't broadcast it in the papers or in the news, but of course it is happening. Without coordination, there's just no way NDLEA can work alone on this issue. And like I said, we want to extend that coordination, not just to law enforcement agencies, customs, immigration, and police, but to also the grassroots level and civil society organizations as well. We're working with civil society organizations. They are our mouthpiece. They do a lot of public enlightenment. We also have a department which is charged for public enlightenment, and they're working along with other agencies to do a lot of public enlightenment. And I'll tell you that recently we have collaboration with Arewa Youth Against Drugs in the North, and we were able to sensitize a number of traditional rulers because we know the drug use in the North has risen to an alarming level. And we are doing that with them, and they are working collaboratively with us. We get information from them all the time, and there are other civil society organizations working with us as well. So collaboration is key to us. We are strengthening that as well, and we have worked out a standard operating procedure to ensure that we have strengthened collaboration with all the agencies as well as civil society organizations. It is the backbone of our work, and we're going to strengthen it up more than what we have currently.
Thank you, sir. You referred earlier to your officers, some of whom are in plain clothes. But what is this perception that NDLEA is understaffed and underfunded? Would you agree with that?
Well, I think the perception is not a myth. It is something which is in the context of the huge problem of drugs we have in the country currently. NDLEA was set up over 30 years ago, and the staff strength currently is about less than 5,000, slightly less than 5,000, but we're increasing the number of the officers with another 5,000. And hopefully by next year, we should have a full complement of staff. And over and above the officers we have the civil society organizations working with us. We have traditional rulers working with us. So, of course, yes, we need to cover the whole country. We need to have a lot of what we call network. And to ensure a complete network and join-up approach, we need to have the full complement of staff, which we think we may achieve that before the year runs out. On the funding, yes, there can never be enough fund to fight drugs. In fact, drug, as you can see, apart from the abuse, we also have cultivation and trafficking, which is very, very rife in this country. And recently, we have seen more cultivation of cannabis. We have seen more processing of cannabis as well. You would have seen as well that some people have this perception that cannabis should even be legalized or should be used. But of course, the current position of law in this country is that cannabis is prohibited. And nobody should think that cannabis has been deregulated or legalized. So we're working hard with farmers, we're working with agriculturists to see that we destroy some of these cannabis farms. And then that's why we need a lot of networking and staff strength to cover the whole gamut of this country. So the funding, like you mentioned, I said, can never be enough. So we are working towards a whole society approach where we want to see private sectors, public-spirited individuals to come in and contribute to the fund of the agency. Federal government's fund cannot do this alone because the budgetary allocation in this country is so little compared to the competing priorities of the government. So we are aware of that, and we are trying to develop alternative source of funding.
All right. Let's talk about the coronavirus pandemic. It looks as though it has drawn attention away from drug abuse and illicit trafficking. But the coronavirus brought about a lockdown, and the lockdown, a lot of people are saying, has spiked drug use. Is that the case? Can you answer that in 30 seconds? And how have you been dealing with this?
Well, the lockdown has been there, but of course, NDLEA officials are part of the essential officers working. And our officers were on duty throughout the lockdown period. And even during the lockdown, they made a lot of seizures in different parts of the country. They have been up to the game, and they are working regardless of the lockdown. Of course, we saw some people who wanted to use the advantage of the lockdown to haul some drugs to areas where we have trouble in this country, to the northeast and to other parts of the country. But of course, our officers were up in the game, and some of them were arrested. So the lockdown apparently has not affected the work we do. And of course, we're happy to say that even our partners have helped us with PPE to ensure that our work continues despite the coronavirus. And then we have also tried to supplement what we've gotten from our partners in respect of PPE to see that our officers on the front line are working on the issues.
Thank you very much, Shadrach Haruna, for joining us today on The Morning Show.